Hello, welcome, Marlon here. I've been getting a lot of requests for tutorials on how to make your own stencils. The first thing I want to talk about though is, do you need a personal cutter? Would it work for you? Would it improve your workflow? Some of you might think,
ain't nobody got time for that.
So yeah, just like cookie decorating, there is a learning curve. It's not, instantaneous, but once you've got it figured out, it will inevitably improve your workflow and just make you more efficient, and at the end of the day, make you money. So let's walk through this machine. Let's talk about price first. There are several different machines on the market. I personally own a Silhouette Cameo. You can do the research and find the one that you feel would work best for you. I'm just going to give you the kind of pros as to why these types of machines might be helpful. Let's look at the Silhouette Cameo again, just because that's the one I own. And you can see here, you can purchase one for $230 US. That includes shipping and all these little gadgets included. Let's do some quick math here. So the Silhouette Cameo I said was $230. The basic stencils are $5. And then if you want to get a custom version, roughly $10, and then there's shipping. So it isn't long that you are at that $230. It's very easy to plan ahead with the holidays, order your Christmas and your Halloween stencils well in advance, but all too often the orders come in and you need something ASAP, you need custom, and that costs money. You're ordering one stencil and paying shipping for that one stencil. So why not cut them yourself and save the hassle, the stress of wondering if it's going to arrive on time and the expense? First question I have for you is, do you use an airbrush to decorate your cookies? And if the answer is yes, then you inevitably use stencils. You probably have a pile of them, some that you've only used once and perhaps not at all. This would dramatically reduce your cost per stencil, and you would have an infinite inventory of designs that you could use to decorate your cookies. Not to mention the whole, business of custom. You could be charging your clients for custom stencils and generate that revenue. Question: when using a projector, do you trace the design onto the surface of the cookie before moving on to the piping? If yes, stencils might be an interesting option for you. With the use of stencils, you can just add your guidelines so quickly and flawlessly onto the surface of the cookie, and you're ready to work. And the other thing, if you're several people in the room working and you have to dim the lights to use your projector, that can kind of hinder the work of the other people, and sometimes also it's difficult to dim the lights. This way you can really quickly get your guidelines on the cookie. Next question is, do you prefer to use your own designs when decorating cookies? Inevitably, if you're buying stencils, some of them get very popular and several people are using the same thing. You're losing that kind of uniqueness to your collection. So if you want to have your own designs, then cutting your own stencils is basically the only way to go. Next question I have for you is, do you take corporate logo cookie orders, or would you like to? Corporate orders can be very lucrative. They're often ordering several hundred cookies, but they do expect a certain level of quality when replicating their logo. And with a personal cutter, you would be able to replicate their logo flawlessly, create a really strong portfolio. We're 6 months away from Christmas, so this would be actually the perfect time to create a corporate kind of Christmas portfolio, since that's really when a lot of companies order cookies. So you could create like a holiday kind of version, some generic logo cookies, and have some examples, some nice photos, and get yourself all booked up for Christmas with the top paying clients. So much has changed since I started making cookies back in the day. People could not wrap their minds around paying $5 for a cookie, and now prices seem to be more accepted. It's more palatable to people. And so there's a big demand for these custom little works of art. And if you're doing logos or stuff that's really customized only for that client, and you need to create templates and stencils, well, you need to be charging for that. And so you could be charging a setting fee, a little bit like the printing companies do a setup fee, and you could just include that in your corporate order on top of your per cookie rate. My preferred way to create my templates and designs is with my iPad and my Apple Pencil. I'll sometimes take a picture of the bare cookie and draw on the cookie with my iPad. I find that's kind of inspirational. I'm kind of decorating the cookie virtually, but obviously an iPad is expensive, and if it's not in your budget, then you could just use a paper and a marker. It's very important to have jet black lines for the Silhouette Studio program to recognize the lines. Here is my logo in black, ready to be cut with my Silhouette Studio. But before you can kind of just drag your text into the cutting machine, you need to create bridges in your font so that the middle parts of your letters don't just fall out. If you were to cut, for example, the O, well, that's completely cut all the way around, so you're just going to lose the center of the O, or the little kind of hole there in the E and the A. All that's just going to fall out. You're not going to have any real definition in your letters. So let's zoom in so we can look at what I'm talking about. Here I've zoomed in to the words, and if you look at the pink arrows there, you see there's little white sections that break up those black lines. Those little areas is what kind of holds everything together. If I was to just cut the whole thing as is, then the middles and the O's and just the whole thing would kind of just fall out of the plastic, and it wouldn't hold together. You need kind of a skeleton to hold all these bits together. You can, if you want, create your anchors in the design studio. I do not personally care for that. I find that it's more complicated than it needs to be. If you're working in some sort of a graphic program, you can easily come in with your white paint and just cover up your black line in these little sections, and then render your image to a JPEG, and then just quickly drag that into your design studio and make your stencil so much faster. I'm going to quickly just convert this into a stencil. I find that it's easier to leave it big while you're kind of tweaking, and then once you've got it worked out, then you can make it the size that you want. You want to start by using the little butterfly here, and then you can select trace area, and then you can come in and select the part of the image that you want to convert into, send the message that you need to cut those lines. So you see it selected all in yellow there, you can see. And then I do trace. And then when I remove my master, you see I'm left with these red lines, and that's where the blade will cut. So let's delete the black. And now let's just look at this. So my scallop here, this is a shield I wanted to create. So I'm going to be able to lay this on my round cookie and then airbrush in pink, and I'll be left with kind of like a shadow or a silhouette of white, and then I'll be able to come in and add this portion here. Now, depending on what you've worked out with your design that you want to do, you can maybe sometimes, there's logos that have like word like this and then a little design element. Well, you could just use this, for example, since cookies, when you're going very small, you're going to lose some of that finer detail. So you can kind of work out what you want to do with the client, if you want to focus on one aspect of the logo or if they want the whole thing replicated. So I'm going to release compound path, and what that does is it breaks up all the little bits. It makes everything kind of separate. So I'm going to regroup here. Let's zoom in on this. So here, the crown and the M, I want to group them together and move them aside, you see? So now this will cut all on its own, and this will cut all on its own. Next thing I want to do is zoom in on all my little bits to see my bridges, to see if they're big enough. And this one here, I find it's a bit narrow, so I'm just widening it so that when it cuts, there's a little bit more of a support right there. Same thing over here. I'm just going to nudge my line over to give myself a little bit more. Right here at the E, it's very narrow. You just want to nudge your lines. I'm going to delete one of the squares. It's a lot easier to zoom in, and then you can kind of see a little bit better what you're doing. Okay, this one here for sure is too tight. So you just run through the design to make sure that your anchors are good. Now when I'm really zoomed in, you can see, look at the jaggedness of that line. But once you get it like small, like 3 inches, that looks much smoother. So it really just looks jagged right now, but it's pretty forgiving when you cut them smaller. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's look at this here. I'm just going to move this over, this over. I'm going to delete that. There. Okay, now I'm going to group the words together. So this has to be together. Whoops. Group that together. Let's move. Let's keep all this together. These all have to be one color, so group this. Okay, so now I'm going to put it all together just so that it all sizes the same way. So I'm grouping it, and now I want the width of Confections to be 3 inches. So I can use the squares right here as my gauge. You see? Right there. And then everything is sized correctly, and then I can come in and create my scallop size. I want to have that maybe a little bit bigger. So this is my shield, and that's going to fit perfectly, so I'm going to have that on the side. And let's ungroup this again. So this is separate, this is separate. I'm going to leave like 1.5 inches at the top, so there. And then I'm going to put like 2 inches in between there. And then this, should I have? I'll put the butterfly with the actual Montreal Confections. So here, let's group them together. Group. So I'm going to keep them together, and this will be separate, the little kind of, I'm going to put them about 2 inches apart there. And then this will be a little after thing. Okay. And my stencil material is 8.5. So I'm just going to cut at my 6 inches. So let me make an 8.5 inch long line right here at the 6 inch mark. So it's going to cut all the way down. Now I can see here, I'm going to move this up. So I'll leave myself like 1 inch at the bottom. This guy here, I'll just put like there. And then this is my shield that it's going to cut like right here on the rest of my plastic. So there's my stencil. So I'm looking at this right here, and it's going to be very small. When it's cutting, it might not do a very good job. As I look at it here, this is going to be problematic. So you might need to further kind of space this out, or maybe eliminate one of the lines. You know, there's always tweaking that's necessary when you're making stencils. There's a limit to how small you can actually cut. But this is basically the process. Now moving along to character cookies, I just chose Dumbo. There is again an infinite inventory of coloring pages, which is probably the cleanest, most kind of stencil friendly image you want to be using. So here is the Dumbo image I found. I googled Dumbo the elephant coloring page and just a ton of images came up, so I just randomly chose this one, and then I dragged the image into my graphics program where I added the anchors that we discussed before. Here you can see I've zoomed in the image and I've simply added a few white lines where I need to kind of create some bridges so that all these lines don't just fall out. If I didn't put the bridge there in the eye, well, the whole center of the eye would fall out. I would be left with no definition with regards to the pupil, the little ruffle collar, all those bits would just fall out. So it's really crucial to add these little elements that holds the stencil together. You can do it in the Silhouette software, but it's much easier to do it this way. Once you've created your stencil, as you can see here, I have all my bridges. You can actually create a perimeter line and also cut out of cardstock a template if you need to hand cut your cookies, or you can perhaps find a cutter from your collection where you could center this on. Now, a design like this, it will need to be relatively large. Again, when you're cutting such narrow lines, there's a limit to how small you can go. And so your design, your overall character has to be, there's a limit to how small he can be. You cannot go like 2 inches across. It's impossible to be able to add the level of detail on such a small image. Now that initial stencil can be used as a decorating guideline to get that on the surface of the cookie to come in and decorate in icing. But you can go a step further and create stencils for all the elements within your character. Here we can see the trunk, the hat, the body, the head. You can create all these kind of guides or masks to quickly come in and airbrush your character, add the details, and then come in on top of it all, adding your black outline, and just quickly and really flawlessly replicate characters. The other thing I wanted to kind of just show you guys is the design store. This is where artists upload their designs, and you can purchase these designs to create whatever you want. Obviously, like here, this dog, you can make this, I think it's a card, and you could make that card, but you could also use this to make a stencil to decorate cookies. So you would cut out, let's say, the whole perimeter. You could hand cut the cookie and then come in and stencil like each section to create your kind of cookie. So you can use these paper designs to create cookie versions. There is a huge inventory of designs, and pretty affordable to purchase the art. Like here, Lake My Day, 63 cents. I think this section here is on sale, but you can convert all this stuff to work in cookie form. See this here? I've seen this done on cookie. Well, you could purchase this and you'd have exactly the decorating template to make your cookies. You can actually even type stencil. Here, let's see what comes up. You see here, they're already all made for you at $1.25, a fraction of the cost to purchase stencils, and you can cut your own. Let's look at this one here, you see? Very nice. If you like a certain stencil, usually if you look at that person's inventory, you can kind of like, they usually have like a style by each artist. So if you like a certain stencil, you should look at that artist's work. Chances are you'll like more of their designs. Here, look at this. You could create a stencil for each color and just airbrush this, the watermelon. And then things like this, you just have to create the little bridges for the words. I mean, a ton, no matter the holiday. Here, let's look Christmas. I mean, so much to choose from, and you can quickly and easily cut either decorating templates or stencils. And then a step further, if you own the 3D printer, you could actually cut your cookies. Let's see if they have any cookie cutters. Not yet, but like this guy here, look how cute he is. This could be a cookie decorating template. This one as well. For those of you that like to use my cookie decorating tutorials, I have a few cut your own stencil files on Etsy if you want to match them up with the cookie decorating video so that you can recreate the project to help you learn the whole cookie decorating process. Thanks so much for watching to the end. If you don't own a personal cutter, well, this is it. This is why perhaps you should consider getting one. It will really help you with regards to the prep, getting your canvas ready so that you can create really flawless designs and recreate designs flawlessly and efficiently. The faster you can work, the more money you're going to make. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching. If you are inclined to make any purchases, if you make those purchases via my Amazon store, I earn a commission, which really helps my channel. Thanks so much for being here. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads, and I'll see you next time.